Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.
All right. Hey, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another show. Strong Dad's excited.
You are all jacked up today.
Excited to be here. Merle, you know what today is? Today is June 1st as we are recording this. I know that when the show comes out, it won't be June 1st, but it is
my favorite month of the year.
Today is June 1st. And you know what today marks?
What?
Today marks
my birthday month.
Oh, well, no. Today marks the beginning of the 90-day Bible challenge. I know I have spoken about this.
Is that that thing you sent me?
I send Merle,
Guys, you got to listen to this.
Our small group, we commit 90 days to read the entire Bible.
And you can't even read.
Well, hold on. I'll tell the whole story. To read the whole Bible in 90 days. And when I say read, we have the Bible app on our phone, and it reads it to you.
Oh, does it sit you on on its knee and then give you like a little...
We set a premise. You're not supposed to read it or listen to it while you're driving because, for me, it'd be like...
Yeah, that would be easy.
I would get a little road rage and listen to the Bible at the same time. Wouldn't go very well. But anyways, so I'm excited. I send this to Merle like, hey, bud, you should do this with us. Really excited. I send to all the guys I work with. And the response I get back from Merle is, you're killing me. Like, come on, Merle. I mean, priorities here. Priorities. It's about an hour reading a day.
An hour a day. And again, now
an hour a day keeps Satan away.
I could have it playing in the background, right?
Yeah.
But the idea of it actually being out and about and I'm paying attention to it or actually reading it, I don't know where I'd even come up with an hour.
I think you could find it.
Oh, man. All right. You're calling me out.
I'm calling you out.
Thanks a lot. Well, welcome to Strong Dads as we start out beating me up.
Besides you're sissing out on the Bible challenge. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm sore. I've been landscaping. I'm sore. Yeah.
I saw the big pile of dirt. It's not so big anymore.
It's not so big. It's slowly dwindling. I got to get the plants all put in sometime today because it's supposed to rain really hard tonight.
It is.
Got to try to get that in before I got to have a big mud quagmire. All right, man. Today we are blowing things up, and I hopefully just mean that figuratively.
Yes.
But we are going to get into our discussion and discussion really with all humor aside about a responsibility issue that links back to the shooting in Texas in Uvalde. Just the idea here, man, this is a call to action. Yeah. It is a call to action, and I'm so sick and tired. I think as I thought about this and wrote this was just, I don't know, my blood boiled more on this one because if I could say anything, this is a man problem again. Mm-hmm. This is a man problem again. Us men have the ability to make a significant change in this issue, but it's not going to happen overnight. Yeah. But doing nothing is what we've been doing. And it's just perpetuating this kind of stuff, not just the mass shootings, but this kind of stuff. We did an entire show on abortion. It was the same thing it's a man problem of men not wanting to step in and do the right thing. And so, man, like this is an opportunity for us to actually really do amazing stuff on a large front. And so, I don't know, like I got more passionate as I wrote it more and more, just thinking, and I don't know, we don't have all the answers for sure.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's not a quick instant fix, but I do know that we carry a whole lot of potential here to make some major changes.
Yeah, it's hard because, we did a whole show on a mass shooting. We did it in 2019 because of where I work with the city of Dayton. We had a mass shooting in 2019, and we did a show on it. And I think even in that show, we made reference to the fact that this will not be the last mass shooting. And obviously, since 2019, it for sure has not been the last one. Mm-hmm. It's just another shooting, another another, whatever. I know in that show I called it evil. Evil did what evil does, and I think that the same could be said about this case with the shooting in Texas. So I think it'll be an interesting show. I mean, just as we were preparing for it, I think the important thing to see is that I think Merle and I will probably go back and forth a little bit in the sense that I think some of the discussion points we see things a little bit different, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think if everyone in the room is thinking the exact same, it's hard sometimes to come up with solutions. I think it's good to have different minds coming together, thinking different about the situation to be able to hopefully come up with solutions. But the hope is throughout this whole show, it'll always go back to a dad problem,
right?
Which is obviously what Strong Dads is all about.
Yeah, yeah. So probably a preface of what we are going to lay out here is a simple question that we ask all the time of all of us: are we coachable? Are we coachable? And I'm just going to tell you, like, again, I find that most of us are not coachable in this area. We're not coachable when we don't like what it says. I say I'm coachable when I show up on the football field and the coach says, hey, you get to be the quarterback or you get to be the star. And I go, yeah. But I'm not very coachable when the coach says, you get to block for the kid who's going to score the touchdown. Oh, man, like, really? Like, well, no, I don't want to play for you. And that's the idea here. Like, we want what we want for ourselves, and we are losing coachability. And we're talking about being coachable means I've got to do the give and take. I got to do something for a bigger picture, for a better reason. And, man, it sucks a lot of times because I don't always get to do what I want to do. But that's what being coachable is, so that I can win on a bigger front.
You all right there?
I'm all right. I'm dying. Okay. Why don't you thank somebody?
All right. I like it. Yes. Strong Dads, we would like to thank Kramer's Beer House for coming alongside of us. Beer House located down on Route 128. Been a supporter of Strong Dads and what we're doing here for a while now. Go down there. Check them out. They have an incredible setting. Awesome food. Let Mark know we sent you down there. I really do appreciate Kramer's Beer House. All
right. Also, thank you to Casey's Outdoor Solutions for being a sponsor of Strong Dads and just for the work that he does to support our community. We want to thank Casey's and just his whole crew down there. So for any of your landscaping and heavy lifting, dirt, rock stuff, go see Casey's down at Casey's Outdoor Solutions, located actually just in Bright, Indiana, outside of Lawrenceburg, Indiana.
Yep.
All right. So bottom line, we have these shootings, and I'll say, I don't know, it seems about once every now 3-4 months or something like that it's a definition of a mass shooter. I think that waffles around a little bit, but I believe it's now like if there are 3 to 4 people shot.
That's correct. Yep.
So anyway, I don't even want to wrap my head into too much of the semantics of that as much as, everybody wants answers. Because here's the deal, like it's senseless shooting with innocent victims.
Yep.
And that's the part really, like, it's innocent. It's one thing when you've got 2 drug dealers who are going to battle and they shoot each other or one another. One of them dies, both of them die. Like, that's bad because there was a death. But you got 2 people who are playing in the crime, right? But when you throw in innocent people, especially kids, all right, you're like, okay, this is senseless.
Yep.
So everybody wants answers to this.
Yep. And with those answers, this is something, and I may refer back to the 2019 show we did on the mass shooting. There's definitely going to be a time and a place for answers. There's going to be a time and a place to go through and to work through this. But I've already seen it on the news. And just because I experienced a similar situation in 2019, man, we have to allow the families to grieve. We have to allow our country to grieve. There's a grieving process. And not to say that we're not in the point where it's time to start, let's look for answers. But I also think some people are not in that place right now. There's a process to go through the grieving process, and I think allowing people just to muster their minds around actually what happened here before we jump into the solutions of whether it be the stuff we're gonna get into today. So yes, I think it is a natural response of something like this to look for answers, to look for solutions, to look for to hopefully prevent this happening again. But I also think there's a time and a place for it. And some people may not be ready for solutions at this time because they're still going through the grieving process in their mind. And, being someone that was not directly, obviously, impacted by what happened in Texas, I think we're a little bit more apt to want to jump into the solution aspect of it. But there are people who have been directly affected by this. And there's people who have dealt with similar situations where it kind of brings up those memories. So I think allowing, being respectful to those people, hopefully that's kind of how our conversation is going to be today, of again, talking through this, trying to figure out where we're at mentally when it comes to this whole idea of how we're processing it.
Yeah, that's totally right. You have to let the people that are directly involved grieve as they need to grieve, and that's going to be a lifelong process now.
Oh, absolutely.
I know, as you just said, like the people from Sandy Hook, this just basically reignited a lot of their trauma,
absolutely.
which was many years ago now. So we have to let them go through it. But I also want to get into a point here of being very careful with the armchair quarterbacking.
Yes.
Because this is what cowardly people do. Right away, we go into all of the blaming and pointing fingers at what should have been done. All right, and listen, you're a first responder. I mean, now all these people are attacking the police, and listen, they may have very well done things wrong. I'm not going to debate that at all. Okay, what I'm saying is that's not where the focus needs to be.
Yeah,
because that's man, if we could have just had the police doing things better or different, that doesn't stop the sickness,
the cancer from growing.
Yeah, the cancer's still there. We just didn't use the right treatment, but the cancer's still there. How about if we go a little bit deeper? Well, if to go a little bit deeper, that means I might have to work, right? So again, I think in retrospect, the police need to go back and review what they're doing and go through more training so that they're better prepared for the next time. But I think it's wasted energy on a big national forum to go and spend all of our time talking about what the police did wrong.
Because for the last last while now, that's all we've done as a society is we've tried to blame the cops for things that fathers need to step in and actually maybe take care of.
You got it. Yeah.
Let's get into that, Merle. What do you got as far as kind of our jumping into this conversation?
Well, first and foremost, I think as men, we have to own that this is our problem. Yes, it is. The symptom leaks out through the nation and hits men, women, and children. All right. But this is, again, by large accounts this is a man problem. First off, all of these mass killings, I think maybe with the exception of one or so here in the last 10, 15 years, have been by men. Okay. And it's crazy. I think the percentage is up above 95% do not have a healthy dad figure in their life. All right. At best, many of them had a stepdad, but like this latest, had no dad at all in his life. All right. So the idea here is, we've got rogue boys. Basically, boys that have determined how they're going to live their life, what means and practices they'll put into place to do what it is that they want to do. And so first and foremost, this is a father problem. Okay. And if we don't call it what it is, then we are just, as you've said before, we're just waiting for the next one because we've got all these boys, these rogue boys, even if they're 35 years old, they're a rogue boy because they've never been brought into the direction and instruction and care from a man who said, son, this is not how you do things. This is how you do things. All right.
With that idea, Merle, I shared this very, very early on when we started this podcast. One of the main reasons, one of the kind of the final straw that brought me to want to do something and start this conversation with the dad, where I was on a run and there was a boy who was in an auto accident, and he tried to flee that scene, and he was still on the scene, but he did not want to take responsibility for that. And I was able to go over and just talk to him about like, hey man, you got to own this, right? You got to own this time. And it was very evident again that he did not have a dad. And I think exactly what you just said is very true. That this is a dad problem. We have too many dads that are absent in the lives of boys in this country, and it's very evident because the idea of a responsibility and the idea of accountability and the idea of what is right and wrong is missing. So then you do get this idea of a rogue boy who doesn't have that moral stance, or that doesn't have the guidance, the leadership that an actual dad that's involved in their life, because every kid in this world has a dad, right?
Right. Has a sperm donor.
Exactly. Has some form of a male that was involved in creating them. But if that's where it stops, if that's where the role of a man stops in that boy's life, is just they just made you, then yes, then we're going to get this idea of a rogue boy. So I think it's very important as men collectively, we need to stop putting the blame on everyone else. It is a man problem. This is a father problem that we are missing the mark mightily in this country, and it's not. I as a dad can't sit back and say it's some other dad's responsibility to do that, right? All we do here is we're just trying to start the dialogue, start the conversation, in hopes that it's a snowball effect, that this idea that all collectively men, we need to come alongside of each other and realize that we got to set our pride aside. Because men, I think, naturally have a pride where it's not my problem, right? I'm raising my kids the way that I think I need to. But collectively as a country, we need to realize that men need to step up and lead other men so that those men can lead boys.
Yeah, I mean, this is just 100% where we have to start. So get off of all your other talks about gun laws and all these other things. And we are going to talk about those. There's a place for those, but those are so secondary on the list that they are minute compared to what we're talking about now. I mean, I'm at the point now, and again, I don't want legislation to come in and be any part of this. This should just be part of what we do within our man community, that we look at other men and say, if you conceived a child, and I said conceived, not birthed a child, all right? So this goes back to the abortion issue. If you are willing to play, then at that point in time, you have a commitment that you are going from conception through 18 years of age, or to where we determine that this guy is have rights of age to be able to make decisions as a man. You are on the hook. If at the bare minimum, you are on the hook for the financial responsibility, but you should desire to be on the hook for all other parts, the upbringing, the raising, the caring, the being the dad. And if you aren't going to do that, then you are the problem. You are the problem. And listen, you're talking here, you're listening to me, that I have been irresponsible, and was acting like a rogue boy when I was in my teens and early 20s. And the idea that now I start to see it, I see what happens from it, right? These are the things that we have to have this harsh, strong, caring talk about with our young guys. Hey, you cannot do this. This is going to have long-term negative consequences on a big level.
Yep. Merle, before we hit the record, you had talked, when it comes to this very idea of this rogue boy who went out and, evil took over. You had said there was a 4-prong approach to looking at this very idea. Will you kind of explain what those 4 prongs that you kind of came up with? Yeah,
everybody wants to grab one idea, and if I could grab one idea, and say this has got to be the area that we're going to put time, money, and resources into, I would say it's fathers. Okay, yep. Like that is the primary deal here. All right. But it is because the genie is so big and it's out of the bottle. We are going to have to, especially, in the immediate time here, we are going to have to get more active. And what I believe there are 4 areas. Okay. And the first one is the father area. And, just being that good dad. I wanted to say something, too, about being a father. The idea of I had a gun when I was in 6th grade. Okay. Mm-hmm. So for my 6th grade birthday, my dad went out. We bought a shotgun, 410. I still have it. Okay.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that gun, he treated that thing like it was a machine gun, like it was a mass killer. Like he took me through, hey, this is how we handle the gun.
Yep.
He took me through gun safety. That was before hunter safety programs were actually available. Okay. Yeah. And so he took me through when we brought the gun out. Here's how you point it. Here's when you load it. Here's how, all of these different things. And he instructed, okay? And we never played with the gun, all right? And so just that in and of itself, like me and my two brothers, we all had guns at very young ages, and we all still have guns. But I mean, like we still go out shooting, and nobody plays with their gun. Yep. I mean, they get out like, hey, make sure, hey, you're pointing that thing. Let's put it back to the ground. We're like just very aware that way. When my sons came up, we went through hunter safety program. Yep. Okay. Which was very much like my dad did, but only in an organized fashion.
Right.
All right. I have 4 boys. 3 of them have taken the hunter safety course, and 3 of them have guns. My youngest has not desired to complete. He started the hunter safety program, but he's not desired to complete it. I don't take him shooting. All right. I mean, I'm not going to get him a gun, I should say. He has gone shooting. I'm not getting him a gun until he shows me a commitment and a maturity level to go through this. That is on me. That's on me. So I think that's just a huge part, again, of us, why we have to continue to be engaged. That's not a foolproof answer, but it definitely reduces the risk.
Yeah. So you got the dad is kind of the first prong, and then obviously the second one being
this second one, you're going to get ticked at me. This is about gun restrictions. This is about gun. We already have gun laws, so a lot of people would be like, well, we need more laws. No, really, we probably don't need more laws. But there is, in particular, I've had a lot of thought about like semi-automatic weapons, and I think you and I can go back and forth on this. Like, my oldest sons are in the military and do heavy duty stuff. They shoot semi-automatic stuff all the time. Okay. I've shot them many times. I've shot machine guns. Like, they're cool. They're fun. Yep. But they're killing machines. Yep. They're not hunting machines. They're made for the purpose of killing people. All right. Yep. Not scaring people. All right. They're made for the purpose of killing people. That's why they're called an assault rifle. All right. I really feel like we need to think long and hard about what hands an assault rifle can get into. All right. I know police. We've had a police officer on here who's a friend of mine, and the thought is like, holy cow, we used to show up and the guy would have a handgun, or he'd have a shotgun, or even he'd have a rifle. And a couple of our guys could show up on the scene, and we had things. Now we have to have a SWAT team. If the bad guy has an AR, I automatically have to go SWAT team, right? Like, because it might as well be an army in there. Yep. A guy who can knock out, thousands of rounds in a matter of an hour. So the idea here is we need to give this a long, hard thought. I'm not saying banning ARs. I'm saying, man, the amount of training that should go in before you can own an AR should be hard and heavy. It should be hard and heavy. My sons in their work, they have hours and hours and hours of shooting their weapons and using them well. And here I've got an 18-year-old kid who goes and gets an AR, no training, nobody's looked at him twice. There's something wrong with that. Yeah. You wouldn't give that kid a Ferrari and say, go out and have some fun. You'd be like, oh, wait, we got to teach you how to drive.
Sure.
So I don't know. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, the idea that it is considered an assault weapon, I get that. I think any gun, the point of it is to kill. I mean, I remember my CCW class. They very, unless you want to kill something, do not point that barrel at whatever. So that the point of guns is to inflict fatal harm to something. Yeah. Whether it be an animal, whether it be a person. So how do you wrestle with that idea? So I am a CCW holder. I do carry my gun with me. My handgun would be considered an assault weapon. I mean, it's meant to kill something. So I wrestle with the idea, and I know you were saying not saying. I think what you said is 100% correct. That that we need to have a long, hard discussion about this. And you know, I think for anyone who is on one way or the other that no, I want zero restrictions, or someone wants all restrictions, I don't think that is the place to be. I'm not a fan of any government restriction in my life.
Right.
So I struggle with this one, but I will, you know, the always and nevers of the world are very, very dangerous to be in.
Well, that's right wing and left wing, right?
Yes.
That's when we're off on the far side.
Yes.
And
Yes.
there's no middle ground.
Yes.
And so that's insanity on either side.
Yes. Yes. And so, you know, this is hard because I agree with what you're saying, that there has to be training. And I think at some point that goes back to the first point of that's where the dad needs to step in, right? That training, you know, yes, it probably should be some form of organized training. I think back to my days of basketball. I remember my dad telling me, you know, he put a basketball hoop up in the yard and gave me a basketball and said, you can play this game. You know, you can go out and you can go play in the game, but unless you put time and effort into actually, you know, practicing, you're not going to be worth a damn, right? When it comes time to the game time. And I think the same could be said about, you know, weapons and guns. Like if you put a gun in someone's hand with zero training, that they I mean, obviously in this country the training is on your own. You're going to have to be the one to do that. You know, you're not going to be worth anything when it comes time to actually wanting to use that. And you know, the flip side of this is obviously, you know, that this circumstance of this mass shooting was not the obviously appropriate time to be, you know, wasn't game time for him. He chose to go into that action, into that environment, and do what he did. So it's hard because, you know, when the topic of conversation gets into using other stats to defend or not to defend the idea of shootings, I struggle with that because I want to use the frame of reference in which we are speaking, and this one is obviously the gun. So, yeah, I struggle with the idea of restrictions, but I also think something has to be done, right? We can't just continue to have this, and I think it just goes back to the first prong that you're talking about of the dad. I think that should be where, again, like you said, if you were to pick one of the four, the dad one is going to be.
Yeah, it's the tip of the spear.
Yeah. So we have the dad, then we have the idea, the conversation of the guns. What are the next two?
So the next one is very real. It's mental illness, right? For far too long, well, you guys have heard me on the show talk about mental illness, my own struggles with it, with anxiety and depression, primarily anxiety. And, you know, it's been something very treatable, and I've had an extremely healthy, great life. Like, it's not something that plagues me every day. But there were a number of years that the illness part was a huge factor. And so I can relate to what anxiety is. I understand it. And to be honest with you, the number of men that walk in my office that suffer the same thing, and these are guys that you're walking shoulder to shoulder with, but you just don't even know it, right? I mean, all the time. I don't care. I have construction dudes. I have hunters. I have office guys. I have it all, and like it seems to trickle out in our conversation. And next thing you know, I'm like, man, this guy's just riddled with anxiety. And if we hold anxiety in long enough, it starts to come out in sick ways, whether deep depression or anger, hostility, and then this final part that comes from long-term mental illness is called hopelessness. And that's exactly what this rogue boy was all about. What do I have to live for? What's the big deal? And so mental illness is the precursor to the ultimate worst state, and that is hopelessness. Anybody who's going to go in and carry an assault rifle knowing, you know, that there's a 99% chance that they're not coming out of this situation alive, they are working from a hopeless standpoint. And so I have to understand the connection of mental illness. Mental illness, if I don't grab it early, like, you know, I got to that point where I finally said, if this is as good as life can be for me, I'm really not interested. Because every day, every second of every day was plagued with this severe anxiety. And so luckily and thankfully to God and just the walk that I went on, I had resources. I had family. I had a doctor who jumped right in with me, and we walked through that. And now it's just not an issue. But it's left me with a never forget mentality when it comes to mental illness. So that idea here, guys, is we've got to stop putting this one on the back burner. I work in this business. For me to get a kid into Cincinnati Children's Hospital, which is one of the best in the nation, okay, for me to get them into getting some level of psychiatric care. Right now, there's a 6 to 9 month waiting list. Wow. So I know your teenager is losing their mind right now and saying and doing crazy stuff, but just hold on for another 9 months and we'll see what we can do. Wow. And the only other way around that is if I bring them in the back of an ambulance. So to do that, and you're an EMT, for me to do that, my kid has to be acting out so severely that they're a threat to themselves or to somebody else that I have to call and I say, Kyle, my kid's acting up. Can you bring your unit over here? And you come over. And even then, this is my personal experience that I've experienced multiple times. If my kid is calm when you show up with your ambulance, there is little to no chance that you're driving him to a hospital because he's not an immediate threat. He doesn't appear to be an immediate threat. So now as a parent, I am now stuck with a kid with mental illness going, where do I go next? And so this is a very real topic. Our social workers, you couldn't pay me enough to be a social worker because these guys have loads that we wonder why, wow, these social workers are terrible. They're terrible. Well, let's give you a job that you can never do. Okay, go ahead. And I'm going to give you, you're going to lay brick for a living. And every time you lay a brick, I'm just going to knock it off. But I need you to build this house in the matter of a week. Yeah. It's insane. Yeah. So the idea here is if we don't start taking a better, healthier look at treating mental illness well as a nation, this is just going to continue. Yeah. To add gas to the fire, I'm on a soapbox on it.
Hey, I like you. Man, keep going. You're sounding good.
Because this is really real stuff. To add gas to the fire, add the fatherless component.
Absolutely. That's what I was going to say.
Again, this comes back. If I have to have a tip of the spear, the tip of the spear is back to the fathers. We had Chris Brown in here from the Fatherhood Institute. Yep. And the idea here is when we have fathers in the house, we greatly reduce the risk of anxiety and depression and mental illness in our kids. Yep. We greatly reduce school dropouts, violence, drug use. And so these are real. And mental illness, again, oftentimes it is a symptom, right? Not too many kids are born with mental illness. Most of them are in environments that basically water the mental illness and make it grow.
Yeah. Isn't it ironic that collectively as a country we have realized that there is a mental health crisis that's going on, and unfortunately part of that crisis has to deal with kids, right? And so we come up with all these different ways to treat that mental health issue that is going on, but yet we neglect one of what we believe to be the tip of the spear, right? We neglect the idea that we need fathers in the home, that we have to have an active dad being a part of this child's life. So it's all well and good to address and say, yes, there's cancer. Here's a treatment over here. And it's a feel-good treatment, right? Right. But we're not going to get down to the nooks and the crannies of why this cancer is in this country. And again, not saying that there's other things that can't be done to assist in fixing the mental health issue. But again, just like you said, it goes back to that first one. We have to address the big elephant in the room first. That has to be a focal point of this country, because the mental health, if all we do is ever try and just attack the mental health and we don't address the idea of the fatherlessness that is going on in our country, we may get to a point where we're like, okay, we got a grasp of this mental health thing. 5, 10, 15 years down the road, a couple more generations go by, and we don't fix that main problem of fatherlessness or the not an active dad in the home, it's gonna be a vicious cycle that's gonna continue to repeat itself. And so we can look at the idea of gun control, we can look at the idea of the mental health, but if we don't have an active person taking a role outside of the government, an active role in those, then we're never gonna actually solve or cure that cancer.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's beating the same drum and trying to not be redundant. But this is the type of talk we have to continue to get out through our man culture. That when we're now at the work site and we're talking with our buddies about how we just screwed some chick and how we're doing this and how I was out getting stoned or drunk, like. You got to give a long, hard thought about what that is growing in our culture. Right. And so if I am the more mature man that's sitting at the work site, I've got to start to hear these messages and go, hey, dudes, like, let's change the subject. Or how about if we approach it a little differently? Or because I'm not trying to emasculate any man. Like, I want you to be even bigger, tougher, stronger, but I want you to know why you're living. Yep. What is your purpose besides yourself? Because all of this stems to the selfishness of, I'm not getting what I want. I'm going to check out. And so that leads to the fourth prong.
Yeah, but before you jump into that, Merle, this is something, what you just said, I found myself in a similar situation recently at work. We've had a couple incidents of the mental health breakdown in the fire service. It is a very known problem right now in the fire world. And our department is attacking this like I think we should. There was one part of it that I disagreed avidly against, and I was not a fan of the way in which we were doing it. And the idea of alcohol in the fire service, it is ingrained in what the fire service is about. And I believe at my core that when it comes to this idea of discussing and attacking the mental health, I think we have to leave the alcohol out. And I made that very clear that I was not a fan of this certain part. And I was met with a little bit of resistance. And I was the minority in the room because I was the only one that was saying that I don't believe that this is a good place for alcohol to be a part of. And it's in a social aspect. It's not actually like, getting drunk. But it was the social idea of alcohol in discussions with the mental health. And I disagree with it. I don't believe that part of the reason why we're in this situation can't also be a part of the cure. They just can't go hand in hand. So I spoke up against it, and I was met with resistance. So what you're talking about, as if you're in a position where you find guys are speaking about certain topics that go against this idea of actually taking responsibility, taking ownership as a man, as a dad, man, I think it again, if we just look the other way, then we're not helping be a part of the solution. All we're doing is just helping repeat the process of a broken system.
Yeah, because so the alcohol thing is really interesting because I grew up with a lot of alcohol in my life, in my family, my surroundings, my friends, and me as a user. And so it was just something that, hey, it's good. We accept it. And I think that there's, again, this is that maturity part that has to step in. There's a time and a place.
Absolutely.
And so, one of the things that my dad always said with the alcohol, and listen, I had no restrictions really, like on drinking, which is I think it's crazy now. But my dad his philosophy was, if you're going to play, you're going to pay. So you decide what you want to do. And so it wasn't like the best instruction in the world, but what it was is when I was 16, if I was out playing with the alcohol, the next morning, man, he was on me. Yeah. Here's your weed eater. We're out, we're working. You're not laying in. You're not sleeping in. Sorry about your hangover. And he enforced that whole idea of like, listen, you can't be a boy and mess with this stuff. Yep. And again, I'm not even saying that's the right approach. What I'm just saying is you have to keep a bigger picture in mind. Like the alcohol is not the ends in itself.
Yeah. So this last prong that when we talk about this kind of this four parts of this solution, or this four parts that kind of lead us to where we're at. Recently Jenny and I did your Rock Solid Marriage class. And I'll tell you what, one of the things that really stuck out to me, and I think it has applications into this, is we, generally speaking, as a country, we need to realize that we need to get out of this idea that we are a child-focused home and we become a Christ-focused home. And again, we're talking, all this kind of stems back to this idea of a father being absent or not active. But I do think there are times where there is a dad that is a part of the child's life, and we still have rogue boys that are out there, right? And I think it can be kind of brought back to, how is the focus of your home? Is it that your child is number one in your home? Because if that's the case, then we lose that ability of responsibility, because the child thinks that they're the number one in the home, so that they can do no wrong. So this idea of being a rogue boy kind of comes in, comes back into, kind of comes to be. So I think this idea of having a Christ-focused home or Christ-centered home is a great place. When it comes to the four-prong approach to this, man, we have to realize that Christ has to be a part of this conversation. Again, we can talk about the mental health aspect of it. We can talk about the gun gun aspect of it, but we have to realize that there has to be some form of a focus, of a stance, a constitution that you and your home live by, and it has to come from Scripture.
Yeah, this is the part where so we could have you all the way to this point, the idea of, okay, we're going to work on men, we're going to work on some gun stuff, mental illness, everybody can agree, yeah. But what is all of this based on? Like, how should a man behave?
Yeah.
What is hopelessness? All right. And how do I use the resources I have? And this is where faith is important. Now, we would definitely subscribe to Christian faith, right?
Sure.
And Christ, because Christ is hope, right? He actually says there's going to be a resurrection. There's going to be life after, okay? So, like, if I want to help with the mental illness thing, I really want to make sure that faith is a huge part of that component.
Yes, good point.
But if I want to talk about dads and how does a dad behave, I want to go to, again, Christ. I want to go to the Word, because that's where the instruction book comes in. That's where the idea of, well, how does a man behave? Because that's where we are called out. Like, we are to care for our family. All right, we are to love our wives. We are to discipline our children. All right, and so the faith component is critical, because it is the underlying, or we talk about in Rock Solid Marriage, we talk about it is the foundation for how all these other things are going to be taken care of. And without a faith, you will just pick and choose whatever feels like it'll get the job done in a moment, right? And so establishing in your home, in your own life, you know what, this is how I'm going to operate. Here's my base, and that's what we call a faith. I'm going to have a faith in my foundation, all right? So when we have a storm that comes by, listen, I know my house is going to go through the storm, but I trust that it's going to keep standing because it's built on a good quality foundation. And that's like, I can't not have some level of faith. And we're just saying, figure it out. Dig deep. Get your foundation. Make it right.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, those 4 prongs, I think, are a great place to kind of have those conversations with other people. I think this idea, just like you were saying, if you were kind of there with us for the first 3, the idea of fathers, needing to step up, the idea of there needs to be a conversation when it comes to the gun, that there needs to be a conversation of the mental health. If you kind of, we're along for that and you agree with that, and then it kind of hit this idea of a faith component and you kind of, checked out a little bit, man, I would just say that if you plug in a Christ-centered focus into each of the first 3, the results that you're going to get from those first 3 are going to far outweigh if you take him out of the picture.
Absolutely.
So this idea of fathers, man, if you are a dad out there and you don't have the faith component, man, plug God in there and see how radically different your idea of what a father looks like is going to be. Man, this idea of the topic of conversation when it comes to the guns, plug God into that. Have him be an active role in that. Man, prayer in this idea of guns. So that way, you're not standing firm. It has to be my way or the highway. Plug God into that and see how the conversation of the guns comes out on that. The idea of mental health, just like you were saying, I think it's perfect that Christ is hope. And this idea of mental health, this idea of getting to a place where you're hopeless, man, plug him into that and see how, again, not to say that any of those 3 parts aren't still there when God is still part of it, but I would venture to say that statistics are going to be way, way less when you plug him into those.
Yeah. So our challenge, guys, so the first part of this is us realizing that we, more than any other group, when I say we, us strong dads, more than any other group, have greater opportunity to influence this whole conversation than any other group. The other groups out there are emotionally yelling out and screaming, and I don't blame them for doing that one bit. Our moms should be yelling and screaming, all right? Their babies are getting killed. We have fear now. We're trying to put security guards in every school, which, you know what, I'm not even against that, all right? But that's not the problem. That is just trying to bring another ointment to prevent, okay? And so we've got, us as men, we have an opportunity here to reestablish in a generation how we're going to proceed as men, all right? And so the bottom line question here, again, that we started with is, are you coachable? If when you listen to this show, you said, I'm not buying any of that particular issue, and you shut it down, you're not coachable. You're part of the problem. The idea here, like Kyle, like you said, we have to entertain these conversations. We have to come back to the table. We have to go, okay, I'm seeing what you're saying. And again, we don't have all the answers at all. But these are 4 areas that I know that I've seen have great influence, and I at least want to entertain these areas.
Well, it looks like we made it through the show, and you don't have a block guy. I didn't give you one. We didn't disagree too bad, so that was good. We were before we hit the record, we weren't sure how this conversation would go. So, man, I hope you.
Well, I think you thought I was going to ban guns. I'm like, no, man, I got a whole safe full of them down here.
Yeah, I hope you guys got something out of this conversation. I hope it does spark some other conversations with other people you work with. Man, we have to start this conversation. We can't just hold it to ourselves and hear it and nod it and say, yeah, I agree with that, and then do nothing with it. Which leads us to, most of these shows that we put out there, man, share the heck out of it. The only way that we really, these conversations can be had in the sense of we're trying to tackle things is we got to share the heck out of these shows. So, when you're out there and you listen to these shows, give us a 5-star rating. That way it populates a little bit, sooner when someone searches something. We really appreciate you guys out there, the ones who are sharing. We really appreciate you. We are constantly looking for topics to be tackling, even the hard ones. We did a whole show on abortion. That wasn't exactly an easy topic to tackle. This idea of mass shootings, this is now our second show. They're not easy topics, but I think if we're considering ourselves strong dads, or we're attempting to be strong dads, I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the hard stuff. I mean, that being a dad is not easy.
No, it's where we're called to be.
Absolutely,
right? We are the strength of the home, but we are also the destructor of the home when our strength goes off course. And so that's just the truth of the matter. You are made to do something, but it's up to you as to what you're going to do with it.
Absolutely.
For the good or the bad. All right, we do want to thank our sponsors again. We want to thank the Kramer's Beer House as well as Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Also, as Kyle said, we want to thank all you guys for listening out there. Continue to share the show. Why don't you close us out and let's go plant some landscaping. Come on.
Yeah, I hope you guys are having a good week. Go out there and be some strong dads. Hey, this is Kyle Carver from Strong Dads. Strong Dads podcast would love to thank the Kramer's Beer House for coming alongside of us. The Kramer's Beer House was started in 1982 by the Kramer family, and since that time, they have definitely become a Cincinnati favorite. So if you're looking for an incredible meal in an incredible setting, definitely go down to Route 128 and check out the Kramer's Beer House.